In this video, I'm going to be talking about how I shot a modern Mexican restaurant highlight video with the Sony FX6. Here's the story. For this shoot, I used the Sony FX6 completely handheld, but I did have assistance with my Cine saddle. I love using the Cine saddle. It is so convenient to be able to pick the Cine saddle up and use it for some stabilization with the Sony FX6 because, as you may be well aware, the Sony FX6 does not have IBIS or in-body image stabilization. So when I'm using lenses like the Sony 35mm f1.8 and the Sony 85mm 1.8, those lenses don't have any image stabilization, and when the Sony FX6 doesn't have any image stabilization and I'm going completely handheld, I can get some micro jitters, which isn't ideal and isn't the look that I'm going for. So having the Cine saddle to help with stabilization is really helpful. As I mentioned, I use the Sony 35mm f1.8 and they are the majority of the wide shots that you see in the video. And the Sony 85mm f1.8 is the majority of the close-up shots that you'll see in the video. I did also use the Sony 70-200mm f4 lens, and that does have OSS or optical steady shot, but I did use the Cine saddle as well just because it's a little bit bigger on the rig and I did want to have that little extra stabilization when trying to pick off longer telephoto shots. I like using a 70-200 in projects like this because when you're filming people, you don't want to be too close to them because then they're aware of you and they'll start acting a little bit different. I prefer to have more candid shots, and when people are laughing and enjoying themselves, I'd rather them to be more authentic reactions than planned, canned, hey, can you laugh and smile for the camera and act like you're enjoying yourself? I must admit, I do that sometimes, but generally I prefer to have authentic reactions than staged ones. But sometimes it's hard to tell between a staged reaction and a real reaction, so really, in the end, whatever looks best in the video is what I'll use. The Cine saddle is also deceptively light, so you might look at it and think, oh, that's just an extra piece of equipment that's going to slow me down. Quite the contrary, it's really light, it's really easy to just throw over your shoulder, put your camera on, and then start getting stabilized shots. I much prefer to use this than, say, a easy rig because putting an easy rig on takes a lot more time and sometimes takes another person to help you put it on. An easy rig is also big and bulky as well, and it also makes it really hard to blend into the background. Yes, the Cine saddle is a little bit of an eyesore sometimes, and I have had one person comment that it looks like a pregnant belly, but really, in the end, it does help me get the shots that I want, and it's the easiest and most frictionless way to get steady shots when you're using lenses that aren't stabilized with the Sony FX6, or you're shooting telephoto length as well, and you want to have that little extra stabilization. And you don't want to muck around with tripods, gimbals, or as I mentioned before, an easy rig. Editing wise, I use Premiere Pro and I shot everything in 4K 50p, and the slow motion shots of the fire were shot at 100 frames per second. I also baked in the phantom neutral LUT into this footage. Now you may be thinking that I was doing this just to speed up my workflow in post and not have to worry about color grading, and that is one slight benefit. It isn't that much extra work to apply a LUT in post with my current workflow, but the main reason that I baked in the LUT for this footage is because the client wanted to have the footage as well, just in case they wanted to cut things up for their own social media content. They wouldn't consider themselves an expert in editing and they're not familiar with the log workflow. So I did them a favor and applied a LUT in camera with the Sony FX6 so they didn't have to worry about doing any advanced color grading and trying to get S-Log footage to look nice, which can be a little bit tricky for people that aren't familiar with that workflow. The transitions that I used in this video as well were through Animation Composer, which is a Mr. Horse product. This is a non-paid plugin which you can pay to add extra products onto. So for this video, I just used the starter pack. So I didn't have to pay for any extra transitions or anything like that. And I thought the results turned out quite well. Let me know what you think in the comments. But if you do find the starter pack a little bit limiting, of course, you can pay for those extra products. Music-wise, I got that through Soundstripe as well, and the client wanted a Mexican type feel, so I went with the track that you heard, and that was easy enough to find as well using the filter selection in Soundstripe. So if you haven't checked them out yet, I strongly suggest you do. Also, all the products and services that I list in this video are non-sponsored. I'm just letting you know that these are the things that I used to create this project. So this was the first of 2 highlight videos that I created for this restaurant. If you'd like to see the second one, let me know in the comments. I did use different lenses for the second video, so I'm happy to do a breakdown and show you what I created with that one as well. And that's the video. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, please give it a like. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to this channel for more videos on video creation in the future.